Hey everyone, today we're continuing the modification train with some brake lines and some drivetrain. We're going to be using Grom parts. We'll see just how compatible it is with the Benelli. And I finally remembered to do one of these intros. Alright, so here's the Grom parts in question that we're putting on today. Sprocket and brake lines. This is a front sprocket with it has the same measurements here as the Honda Groms. This is going to be a 16 tooth. The stock on the Benelli is a 15, so I'm going up one. I want to get a little bit more top speed, and I think that the engine can handle the lack of acceleration. I think it's torquey enough. I'm also putting on a brand new chain. Might as well. This is an X-ring chain, so it's going to hold up a lot better than the stock one. Then I'm going to get into the brake lines. These are stainless steel brake lines from Moto. Of course, they're purple. Wanted to give it a little bit more color. And these are the exact measurements for the OG Grom 13 to 15. I roughly measured out what my brake lines are in terms of length and the angle of the banjo bolts, and they seem to match up, but we'll find out. First, let's tackle the sprocket and the chain. Well, well, we screwed up. So here's the two chains. The black one, here's the stock, and then the gold is what I was going to put on. But the gold one is too short. I did not bother to count the links. I just repurchased what I had bought for the Grom. So the gold chain is 110 link. However, I didn't bother to check, and I looked it up, and Benelli's is 120 links. So I need to reorder because this one's obviously not going to fit. So we're going to have to wait on the chain, but in the meantime, let's continue on and see if I messed up with the stainless steel brake lines. All right, let's get started with the front brakes. So the line goes from here, from the master cylinder, all the way down to the brake caliper. And then what we're going to do first is open this up, connect a bleeder tube, and pump out as much of the brake fluid as we can, so that way when we finally take off these banjo bolts, that we don't have so much mess. Brake fluid is kind of nasty stuff, and so you don't want that sitting on anything, your hands, your plastics, anything on the bike really. So we're gonna try to minimize that as much as possible, but let's get everything bled and taken off, and we'll line up the new stuff and see how well it actually fits. All right, we got everything loosely fitted up. I haven't tightened anything down yet. Just wanted to make sure that all the angles allowed for clearances and that there weren't any other interferences with the line. But everything is fitted up pretty nicely. Now we got everything torqued down, and it's time to start filling this thing with brake fluid. So what I've done is I've turned the bike and I made sure to loosen this and kind of move it up a little bit so that this master cylinder is level. That way there's no spillage, but I do have a towel just in case. And so the name of the game is to remove the air that's in this new tube all the way down with fluid. So what we're going to do is we filled this up, and then I have the bleeder tube still attached here. This is loosened so that way the air has somewhere to go. And then it's just a matter of pumping the brakes. And you can see those little bubbles there. That's fluid going into the system and air escaping the system. So we're going to keep doing that until I start to see some fluid coming up and out of this bleeder tube. After that, then it's a matter of pumping the front brakes with that closed to gain some pressure here. Then holding this in, you'll crack this open and close it to remove any bubbles. Basically, that's what you're looking for, any air that's still in the system. We're going to use pressure from the brake itself to push that air out, so that way it's nothing but fluid. And then we'll do that enough and top this off as needed until we have brand new brakes. All right, we are moving right along. I got everything loosely fitted. I reused the banjo bolt here because unlike some of the other bikes that I've had, the brake light electronics are actually connected to the banjo bolt up here. I did put new copper crush washers on there, of course, since we've undid them and need to torque them back down again. But other than that, everything's really good. Everything fits up quite nicely. And so now it's just a matter of, like the front, tightening these things down and then filling up the rear brake master cylinder with fluid. Okay, that took a lot longer than I expected. There was a little bit of gymnastics involved with getting this thing bled. The reservoir here is at an angle, so I couldn't rely on just having it sitting in there, otherwise it would leak, so I had this unbolted and held out. And at the same time, while holding that level, applying pressure to the brake and opening and closing this bleeder valve. So took a couple of tries, accidentally got some air in the lines, but managed to bleed everything out, and now it's nice and firm. So it turns out that you can actually use the stock measurements and angles of brake lines from the Grom for the Benelli. This was basically a direct fit. I don't see any clearance issues in the rear or in the front. It's fantastic. So anyone that's looking to do a nice brake upgrade for these things, you don't have to worry about ordering custom lines, anything like that. Just order some stock OG Grom, that's the 13 to the 15 year, and everything lines up absolutely perfect. So now that we're done with this half of the bike, with the front and the rear brake lines completed, we just have to wait for the chain to arrive in the mail.
Eventually, one eternity later.
Look, we have it in the mail. With the two hands here, it looks like I'm Chris Fix. Hey guys! Anyway, we got the chain in the mail. This is a 122 link. It was actually a couple dollars cheaper than the 120 link. So I'm going to have to take a couple of these links off. So for that, I have This, my chain breaker tool. I've used this many times. For those of you that aren't familiar, this is basically, it's just a vise basically with two sets of bolts here. The first one, the big one here, is to clamp the link into place. Second one here is to push a pin in so it goes all the way through, punches it out. Whoa. I don't know if the camera is able to pick that up. That was a massive, massive thunder sound there. Well, I was going to say that we got this thing cut and put the master link in. Everything's tightened and up to spec. And I was going to say that now that we have the drivetrain done with the brakes, we can go out and drive this thing. So I'm not sure anymore. It sounds like we're going to have a thunderstorm approaching. So maybe I can get in at least a couple miles just to make sure that everything's tightened up and everything's feeling good. Let's see. Fingers crossed.
I don't think it's clear. Holy! Yeah, I don't think I'm riding today.
Many months later.